What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrett G. Money Rattler. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Everything's kind of good on this side. First of all, I am going on vacation. I am looking forward to going on vacation. So that's a positive thing, right? Right. But yeah, that's pretty much where the positivity is. First of all, big prayers and well wishes and thoughts to everybody that's in the way of Hurricane Melissa. It apparently is one of the largest storms ever. It's unprecedented size and everything. And so as residents of New Orleans, we know that helpless feeling. And so anybody who is affected by it, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Just wanted to get that out there. The Jamaica Islands and all of those people, just devastating to think about it. And hopefully everybody is okay and that we can minimize the amount of lives lost, because property can be replaced, lives can't. After that, though, let me tell you something, bro. You know, I think about a lot of things in my life, and I think about if things, I look back at decisions I make in life, and I wonder if, like, was it worth it? Was it worth it? And so I sit here today and I think about the state of sports in New Orleans, really Louisiana, but like New Orleans, outside of Tulane. Shout out to Tulane. And I think about that Super Bowl, right? And I pose a question to all of my listeners, all of our fans. Was the Super Bowl, the Saints Super Bowl, worth the perpetual curse that has taken over since then? Because I will go to my grave saying that Sean Payton went into that locker room, went and got the dark hold and started praying to Dormammu and Mephisto and was saying, listen, if you give me this onside kick, we're going to call it ambush. I will give you the next. And I thought it was 10, but somebody need to ask Sean Payton how long the terms were on that of Louisiana sports, because, man, it is not great. The Rattler era in New Orleans has seemed to come and pass, near and dear to our hearts. And the Pelicans out here losing by 30 at home. So, like, I'm wondering if it was all worth it. But outside of that, bro, how's everything on your side?
I'm going to go ahead and answer your question. The answer is yes, because there are some franchises that still haven't won and go through the same shit. So trust me, I understand that. Yeah, man, everything is blessed on my end. Yes, you wish you had better basketball to watch and better things to talk about, but I do have a lot to talk about and a lot to get off my chest. So before we get too far into things and the depression that is Louisiana sports, it's not just New Orleans. LSU ain't got no coach either. Make sure you guys are follow us on Twitter, on X, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO Basketball E. Make sure you are liking the episode below, and make sure if you're not already subscribed with us, because as you can see, we're coming to you more this often. So we released a pod yesterday. We kind of walked through week one and the 0-2 losses, and while discouraging, a lot of encouraging parts as well, but not time to panic. You see Boston on the schedule. That, again, it's not the same Boston. They can't score, a lot of issues because they just don't have the talent, don't have the bodies and things like that. And it's a home game, and you're looking to get right before you go this murderer's row of a road trip with Denver and OKC.
And Boston was on a back-to-back, and you had 2 days rest.
You're absolutely right. It was setting up to be a game you needed to win, a game you might overlook, which apparently the Pelicans did as well, and a game that I don't know if it necessarily made you want to panic with the team, but for sure, if anything, it was an eye-opener for both the fan base, the team, the coaching staff, an eye-opener for sure, because it's not always that you lose, it's how you lose in some of those regards. So before we even get to the game, you get the announcement, hey, Yves Missi is available. Hey, Carlo Makovich gets to make his season debut. Hey, Zion's been downgraded to questionable because he's got a bone contusion on his foot. Again, contusion, as we have come to find out over the past however many years in the NBA, just means bruise on your foot. So it doesn't mean tear, it doesn't mean break, it doesn't mean anything like that. But Zion's questionable. Now, if you've been paying attention to the Pelicans, you should know that if Zion goes questionable right before the game, he's probably not going to be that game. You didn't on the Pelicans pictures, you didn't see any things like that. And so you can kind of get to where you were going to get to. So immediately the air gets sucked out of the building. All of a sudden you're like, okay, what's going on with Zion? Right? It's not even about the team at that point. It's like, oh no, here we go again. Well, as you get closer to the tip-off of the game, you find out that Jaylen Brown may not play. He's questionable. The second night to a back-to-back. He's got some hamstring issues he's been dealing with, but playing through and things like that. So you're like, okay, well, if you're all without Zion, you're without Jaylen Brown, may at least be a more equal playing field. Garrick, I felt as if the Pelicans walked into this game like this is a game we should win because we have more talent, even though they have Jaylen Brown, but we just have more talent, even without Zion. In this game, they got their ass kicked. This is the NBA. If there is not a welcome to the NBA moment, I'm not even talking about the rookies. Like we'll get to that. Like I don't blame them at all. If there's not a this season matters for so many people in this building that you can't afford to lose. I understand it's the third game of the season, but you can't afford to lose games that you need, especially when you're about to go through, again, murderer's row in the West earlier in the season, because it's going to come back to that Spurs game at the end of the season 2 years ago where Zion sat out and the Spurs won by 1 point off a Wibby incredible shot, and the Pelicans end up playing in the play-in. Zion gets hurt, and the rest is history. This game kind of gives me a little feel. It sounds crazy to say, but early in the season, it feels like a game you should have had, you would have liked to have, and ultimately you blew it in a fashion that's like, what's going on here, and where's the disconnect here? So I'm going to hand the floor to you. What were your initial thoughts in the game? Obviously, you were in the building. You felt the energy, even without Zion. Walk me through what was, I don't know, it was just a piss poor effort by the Pelicans.
Yeah, it was jarring. It was jarring to see a team come out and just look like they had never played together. Like they looked like they were too cool to do the dirty work. It just seemed like everybody was just like, okay, well, and we've talked about this roster, being built to say, okay, if Zion isn't available, which you've seen come to fruition time and time again, there should be more answers to the test, right, at this point in time. Now, for a competitive group of guys, Jordan Poole talks about their the internal motivation. Trey Murphy has talked about being motivated and writing down what people are saying, right? Zion has talked about stay on that side when we get to where we get to, right? Earlier that day after practice, you hear Jeremiah Fear saying, we're going to play together. We're going to play harder. We're going to win the game. We're going to get the dub.
We got a chip on our shoulder.
All of that. And like the first time this collective team got to do anything, without Zion to prove, all of these guys have stuff to prove, right? Trey Murphy's trying to be an all-star. Jordan Poole is in a contract year. Like you are trying to earn a contract, not in the contract yet, but trying to earn his next contract. Like there's a lot of things for all of these guys to be proud of, to be wanting to play. And they just came out and it was flat-footed. And I hate to keep harping on and beating a dead horse, but for me, it started with Trey Murphy, and we'll get into his struggles. But watching this game, he was so lackadaisical on defense, so lackadaisical on what I call special teams, right? Rebounding, guard for steals, doing things like that, like the in-between games. There were times where he was just standing around, and it kind of permeated throughout the whole roster. Jordan Poole got, bless his heart, you're starting to see him fit into the same problems that CJ McCollum ran into, where he is asked to do way too much, and it ends up with him throwing the ball over everywhere and throwing the ball at the rim. That's not what he is supposed to be doing, right? But he's doing it, one, because Zion isn't playing it, two, because nobody else seemed to be doing anything yesterday, wanting to do anything, right? And so, Jeremiah Fears gets his first start, and this is an opportunity for him. But I mean, he's running up against Derek White and got like grown adults, grown ass champions who are like, yeah, not you. It ain't gonna be you. And so again, like you said, I don't blame the rookies, but it just felt overall like the team, you could say they were overlooking, but I don't know how this team overlooks anything. Like, you haven't won anything. You haven't proven anything to anyone to be overlooking a game. So like, it just seemed like they all just like weren't there. And it permeated literally from the top with Trey Murphy, and you could see it go down. That every time I tweeted during the game, every two, 3 steps that they took, you never felt like the Pelicans were like going to get over the hump, because every time they got close, 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers, throwing the ball out of bounds, not getting rebounds, can't get a stop. And it was just like, yeah, this is one of those games where it's like, yo, you got to be quicker than that. And every time you saw, the game start to slip away from the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla was right there to call timeouts, to push the right buttons, to get the right guys in, to substitute the right guys in. And again, it's crazy to think that like this was what's happening. And the Celtics played a back-to-back, and the Pelicans had 2 days off at home. Their last game was at the home opener. And so it just was a very dispiriting, very, very displeasing. And the Smoothie King Center kind of felt it, right? Like, God bless Theo, friend of the pie, friend of the show. He was out there trying his hardest, but it just, the whole building felt, going in, when you saw Zion come out in the street clothes, everybody, I was sitting around some Celtics fans who was like, oh, Zion isn't playing. And I'm like, yeah, well, no. And people behind us were upset. And like, from then, like you talked about the air being sucked out of the building, but then for the team to come out and be down 23-9 before you even get your crispy crunchy chicken, it was very disheartening and very dispiriting, and like you said, very eye-opening for, I think, a lot of people in this organization and in this city.
So I'm gonna rewind just a little bit. First of all, I'm gonna start with Zion. I understand it's a long season. I understand the goal for Zion is to have him available for when you potentially may be able to play games that really matter for the first time. I understand. I had this conversation with my 7-year-old son. I'm just trying to teach him about the world and about awareness. Time score situation doesn't just apply to a basketball game. Time score situation applies to life. What is it? What is it called for? What is being asked of you from your family, from your coworkers, your teammates, whatever it may be? Here's my issue with Zion. Now, Zion did come out after practice today and say, he hurt his foot on the putback slam, fell on someone's foot in the Spurs game versus Wemby, and didn't start to hurt until a couple of days later. I get that. I understand. He's a big guy, a lot of torque. We got it. Understand. Played sports. But in a situation where your team has 0 wins in a season, in a first slate where you need to get off to a strong start, knowing that you have a lot of good opponents coming up on your road stretch, I could see himself and the team saying, okay, Zion, we think we can get this win. Let's take it easy, gear up for the road trip. We'll figure it out. But like, when you read Willie Green's comments in the preseason or in the pregame presser, it sounded like this was like a Zion decision, that like, hey, this doesn't feel great. Let me check with the trainers. Let me see where I'm at. And if it's 50-50, I'm going to hold off. Let's go back to time score situation. You needed this win, because even if you go 1-2 in the next win, you're still 1-5. Like, you are putting yourself in a situation early in the season where you're already digging out of a hole.
A very familiar situation.
Right. You're already digging on your hole. And so I understand if there's temptation or there's a possibility that the injury could linger or get worse. Sure. Go ahead and rest your star player that you need around. But if it's like, hey, you're 80% and you'll be okay through the pain, you just got to figure out. I feel like this is one of those times where Zion can show things are different. I'm they're gonna give me the ropes to play. I need to play because we need to go get this win together. And the team hasn't shown the ability. I know we talk about, and I tweeted before the game, you know, you brought in Sadiq Bey, you brought in Jeremiah Fears, you brought in Jordan Poole, all these guys that can get their own shot and create for other people. But they haven't shown you the ability to do that yet without Zion on the court, right? He's been the driver on the offensive end. He's been the driver on the defensive end. What did we talk about the last pod? He led the team in minutes, points, rebounds, you name it. You know, it's Thanksgiving. And yams, clams, you know, like
you name it.
Yeah, he's been everything for the team. And so in a situation when you've needed him to be everything, he wasn't available. And that's why the Smoothie King Center probably felt the way it did. That's why the team probably came out and felt the way it did, because you're looking at Jeremiah Fears, who's been coming off the bench in a conducive role where you're not playing against maybe the best players in the league because you're coming off the bench, and you're saying, hey, young rookie, I know you're playing well. Go fill the shoes of Zion Williamson, not just from a point standpoint, but from a mentality standpoint of I'm the star. I'm going to drive the ship. I'm going to push us forward and that's a lot for a 19-year-old kid to be making his first start in the NBA, to try to compartmentalize and be able to do all at one time. And so go ahead.
No, just because we're talking about Zion, like what I told you earlier, the optics of it looks bad, right? Like you come into this season talking about, you know, hey, stay on that side when we get to where we get. Like you kind of put this target a little bit on you, where it's like, you know, well, what side are we talking about? We talking about the injury report side? Like, is that the side we're talking about? And then on top of that, again, you talk about, you know, what can you give your team on a night in, night out basis, right? Even if you're on 100%. I would like to reiterate that the Pelicans they had 2 days rest at home after playing the against Wemby at home. Jaylen Brown, not only did he play the day before, but he had hamstring issues and still was able to get on the floor and give his team in a year where, like, they don't really have any expectations. Like, he has no reason to play. Like, if anything, they're probably going to be like, well, can we kind of get some of these more losses so we can get this ping pong ball up in this gap year? Whereas the Pelicans and Zion are trying to establish something. So if at any point this is the time to say, okay, listen, it's not 100%. I'm not going to go out there and give you 35 or 30 or whatever the case is. But I can go out there and be a gravitational pull for my team, a leader for my team, and get out there and do something, especially if you're going to play against the Nuggets. Now, it comes out that he's going to be questionable again for the next game. But, like, you have to be able to bring it back to your point, have to be able to read time, score, situation, and know what's going on and what your team needs. Like, this is the kind of loss that, like, you know, it's the third game of the season, but could, like, lose a lot of people in the locker room where it's like, oh, well, here we go again. Or it's like, well, like, we lost by how many points to who at home? Like, how are we ever going to beat the Nuggets and the Thunder and things like that? So, like, this was a very, very bad look for, like, the organization, and a very another straw in the cap for the talking heads and the Atlanta Hawks, who have all bet that the Pelicans are not going to be good this season.
Well, I mean, here's the other part of it. I don't necessarily think that, like, the team is flustered or wavered from it. I think it, like, took them aback that the score was as bad as it was. Like, Zion's like, hey, you lose games like this, and that does happen. I think it's the opposite problem. I think they have too much confidence in their ability because they have a bunch of guys that can score, that they can turn on. Like, you've heard Jordan Poole say, hey, we've had stretches where, you know, we can turn into that team. But, like, the true test of a good team is not when things are going good, is how do you stick to your identity when things are going poorly and things are going bad. And so, like, that begs the question, like, the Pelicans got bullied at home. And going into the season, we said, well, the things that they do best and the identity of the team should be their defensive activity, their paint to great prowess, whether Zion's on the court or not, and their pace and how they play in transition. Well, going into this game, it was strength on strength. The Celtics don't beat themselves. They don't turn the ball over. The Pelicans turn everybody over, and they score on the way back. The Celtics had 11 turnovers, and the Pelicans only scored 10 points off of it. Okay, paint to great. I understand Zion's not available. I get that. The Pelicans had set were second in the NBA in points in the paint. They got beat at their own game. They scored 38 points in the paint. Boston scored 46. So not only did they come to your house and blow you out the water from the three-point line, they also beat you and punked you at the thing that you do best.
Do you know how incredibly difficult it is for a team to not only outshoot you by that much, but also outscore you? And I didn't even know the points in the paint was that big. I knew about the three-point line, but that's not great.
So lastly, you get to pace and transition. The Celtics, again, have been playing at a slower tempo than I know Jason Tatum night there and things like that. But like Jaylen Brown is not necessarily pushing the transition. He wants to ISO you in the half court and things like that in space. Boston is coming off a back-to-back. The Pelicans got outran. They looked like the older team. They were walking up the court. They were failing the rebounds. They were failing to close out. They were getting outrun, period. The going into this game, the Celtics were last in the NBA at scoring, last in the NBA in assists. Not only did they blow the Pelicans out the water, they also had almost double the amount of assists. And we just talked about the three. So like literally all three things that you were supposed to be good at, you walked into this game and got destroyed in all three. So it brings the question, like, does this team understand that they're not going to be good just because they can score a lot of points? There's a lot of players in the NBA that can score a lot of points. There's a lot of teams that can score a lot of points. The NBA is becoming more and more available for guys who are coming out of college with the ability to score. Look at this year's draft class, what they're already doing. Look at next year's draft class, what they're already doing. Guys are coming into the league more equipped to score. The problem is you can't just score to win. You have to defend. You have to do other things. And that's what takes rookies a longer time to learn and to grasp and to figure out to become well-rounded players. I think this team thinks that they have so many guys that can score that at any point in time they can turn it on and get enough stops in order to win games, when in reality their thinking has to be in reverse. You look at this team, and we talk about Jeremiah Fears and what he's done so far early in the season, but still acknowledge that he's a 19-year-old point guard who's trying to figure it out on the fly from that end. You can look at Derek Queen and say, hey, he's a really sharp guy, really sharp player. It looks like he needs to be ahead of his skis when it comes to his playmaking, his IQ, and his floor vision. But that's a lot to put on a rookie at such a young age. Jordan Poole, we just talked about. He was not brought in to be this team's point guard. You had DeJounte, you got Fears, you got Zion, things like that. He was brought in to be the scorer, the catch and shoot player, things like that. So all those situations wrap up to what? Zion's out of the game. You have a young point guard. You have a shooting guard who's masking as a point guard. And so your half-court sets are probably not going to be great. Not to mention your centers have been up and out the lineup. Oh, hey, DeAndre Jordan bringing energy to the game, who signed off the street. Like, you've had a lot of mix and match. And so your half-court is probably going to be a little clunky because this is a new group trying to figure each other out. So how do you keep yourself in the game? You defend and you get in transition and you score based off the way you've been scoring the past two games. And Garrett, they did not show up to this game at all on the defensive end. Antonio Davis kept saying on the broadcast, why the Pelicans backpedaling? Like, Derek White is just walking into a three. Like, are they not reading the scouting report? These guys want to walk into threes, and the Pelicans are doing the cha-cha slide, going backwards. It's like, what are you waiting for? You know what they're going to do because they did the same thing the last possession over and over again. And so, like, I just don't know how long it's going to take. Again, I do think this is one of those things that is not going to be figured out in the first 3 games, probably not the first 10 games, probably not the first 20 games, but you need to see more strides. And if this game was anything, it was a wake-up call for what the identity of this team needs to be. What were your thoughts on them completely just playing out of character?
Yeah, man, it to your point, like it just felt like in nothing that they did, like they just didn't do anything that they had done previous games, and it was so odd to watch. Like they all were out of it, and this is going to get to I think the bigger question, which I think we're all dancing around. I think everybody knows. You've seen the tweets about it. We'll get into the leader of the team, the highest of the highest, which is the head coach. there were just, and it's so funny because the way they got back into the game came in two ways. It came in one person being subbed in, or two people being subbed in, and it came with a game plan change that you just talked about. The substitutions. It took Jose and DeAndre Jordan to come into the game to change the tenor of the game. And what do Jose and DeAndre Jordan do best? They bring energy, they bring defense, and they bring like a physicality, whether it's Jose pressing up on you or it's DeAndre Jordan just being this hulking man flying across. So the things that we talked about that's supposed to make you great is actually the things that brought you back into the game because it came from two of the guys that kind of embody that part of what was left of the roster, right? With Zion out and centers not playing for whatever reason. And the second thing was they finally started to like press in full court and they immediately got 2 steals and turned it, and then they just stopped. And it goes back to the Memphis game, right? Like we talked about the Memphis game where you saw things, you're like, okay, they're picking up full court. Okay, they're blitzing the pick and roller. Okay, they're doing these things to get them into the game, and then you get into the game, and then they just stop doing them, right? You saw Ja Morant go one-on-one with Herb again, right? And then you saw here, after they stopped pressing, they just started letting these guys walk into three-point shots again over and over and over and over again. And so it felt like the team. Again, it did look like that. If you watched it, it looked like they thought that they could just walk in and win. Like, but I don't know how you could get there with this team that hasn't proven anything. And so I just don't know how one player, and you built this team around, if Zion isn't here, right? Like you have all other guys, and it just felt like they could never ever get out of their own way. You talk about points in the paint, Raph. I tweeted out at least 3 times that Jordan Poole, Jeremiah Fears, and Trey Murphy all missed Derek Queen posting up, whether it was Derek White, whether it was Anthony Simons. He had guys sealed, and they just would not look and give him the ball. And the third time it happened, which was the Jordan Poole one in the fourth quarter before the game kind of blew up, you could see Derek Queen like loudly, visibly frustrated, like, give me the damn ball, like, because he had done the work. He had run down the court, he sealed Derek White, and he put his hand up. And Jordan Poole, where our game footage, where we can see the game from our viewpoint of the game, I could see him posting right in front of me, and him and Jordan Poole looking, and then looking this way, and then looking, and then looking this way, and I think it goes to, of course, this team misses Zion. He's the best player, and I think there's no question about his value to this team now. But this team really misses DeJounte Murray. They really miss that table setter, that traditional point guard, that kind of he is a scorer, but he sees the game in a point guard way. And we got back to some of those back in those old Zion and BI days where the team could do entry passes. They couldn't pass the ball at all, right? And so it just, if you're not going to be, sharp offensively, you have to sell out on the defensive end. And that's supposed to be the calling card of Willie Green, and it just was not there yesterday.
Before we'll get to Willie Green, but I actually disagree with you just a little bit. Yes, this team is built around Zion, and again, you don't have to go too deep to figure that out. You know who else is built around? It's also built around Trey Murphy, the guy they just gave 112
Let's talk about it.
This was supposed to be the arrival season for Trey Murphy. Brandon Ingram's no longer here. You can't say that he's in your way. CJ McCollum's no longer here. You can't say in your way. You got a new contract. You're the person they gave the mic to on opening night and said, lead us, Trey, and tell the season ticket holders about how this season is going to be different. It was Trey Murphy. And so far this season, he just hasn't taken that step. Now, again, for a team that by all intents and purposes, seems as if they've been working together, working out together. They got ramp up time together. They flew to Australia together. They should have some type of chemistry, some type of flow and rhythm to where they are so far. But to come out like this, yes, you look at Jose and you look at DeAndre Jordan as energy players, and obviously you look at Zion. He may be one of the best energy players in the league in terms of how he lights up a stadium. When one of your leaders is not there, the other leader has to embody what it's going to be that night. You have to set the tone. You're the guy who said you want to be an all-star. You're the guy that says, I want to be one of the best players ever. You're the guy that says you're the leader on this team. That you're the guy that just got paid to be the next potential star. You have to set the tone for the team. They cannot wait to see, oh, Trey hit a couple catch and shoot threes. Oh, Trey hit a floater or a transition dunk. You have to be assertive. And so far this season, Garrett, Trey Murphy has not been aggressive. So if you look at a young team, you got to remember this is a young team, not a team full of veterans who know how to deal with the third game of the season versus a team they should be at home. This is a young team that's looking at, oh, we got all these guys that can do whatever. They're looking at someone to follow and someone to say, that's the tone setter. That's what we're gonna be behind. And to your point, from the tip, Trey Murphy just didn't have the aggressiveness, just didn't have that type of tonality that you want from the game. It's been 3 games. In 2 of the games, Trey Murphy's had 0 stocks, no steals, no blocks. And for a guy that athletic and so long and lanky that can cover so much space, that is a direct reflection of your activity. Now, again, apparently they've been going through ruthless practices, so maybe it's energy and things like that. But if you look at some of the best coaches of all time, they run ruthless practices even throughout the season to the point where people complain about it, but you're ready and you're prepared for when the game comes. And so I'm looking at Trey Murphy. Yeah, you can have a coach yell at you and signal the X's and O's, but as you know, as an athlete and anyone who's ever been one, when you're on the court, it's about the guys on the court. And if you see the guy who's supposed to be the next leader on the team just kind of moseying around, just kind of going through the motions, getting punked on the way to the paint, not going to the basket strong, not closing out on guys, not getting in the passing lane, what are you going to do as a Jeremiah Fears? What are you when your shots aren't falling? What are you going to do as a Derek Queen? What are you going to do as a Jordan Hawkins? You're just going to play with the same energy that they're going to play with. And so I look at this as more of an indicator of Trey Murphy not stepping up. Yes, there's coaching things that could have been done without Zion, things like that. But if Trey's a different player, I think the game just goes differently yesterday.
Yeah. It was not a shining moment for Trey Murphy. And honestly, the beginning of this season, it hasn't been. And I think, you could point at a myriad of things. I think the first thing for me is that, you saw him put on this weight and you saw him hit the weight room and he looks markedly bigger. But like for somebody who, has lived in the weight room and did all that, like he got pushed around a lot yesterday, going to the rim, going, trying to defend people. Even on the offensive side of the ball, like he was letting Boston dictate what he was doing. Boston was pushing him to the corner, and guess what? Trey Murphy went to the corner. And I just, you watch some of these other guys, like you saw what Ja Morant had to go through when Herb was guarding him. Like he went through hell, but like he did not let Herb dictate where he was going. Yeah, you got to stop here. Yeah, but I'm right back. Like I'm right back. Okay, you jumped that pick. I'm going to go this way this time because I'm learning, but you're not going to stop me from getting the ball. And again, for somebody who we've been clamoring over the years, well, this guy is in his way and that guy is in his way and he's not with the starters. Now you had this opportunity and you fall on your face. And listen, there's not an excuse and nobody feels sorry for you. Because I just watched the Lakers play without Luka and LeBron, and Austin Reeves was like, to hell with all y'all. I'm going for 50, and then the next game when they're not playing, I'm going for 40. And so in triple doubles, right? Rebounds, blocks, steal, doing all he can do. And this is Austin Reeves, who is not 6'10" and can jump out the building and shoot for whatever, right? Like he is a fantastic player, but he has his athletic, physical limitations, right? And Trey, apparently, we all been talking about how he has it. And like, I just watched Austin Reeves take this leap, and I'm looking at Trey Murphy, who like this was your opportunity. Like he should have went down shooting. He should have shot them out the game. But it just felt like he was just standing around and jogging up and down because the shots wasn't going at the beginning of the game. And if Trey Murphy, we came into this season with such, I won't say like high expectations. Obviously, our hot takes, but that's just like, what we think at the highest hot takes. But I mean, at least I figured like this team could be competing for a 6 seed, for a top 6 seed or hosting a home playoff series like in this, combined West. If you win 2 games instead of losing those 2 games, you go from 6-3. Like I thought that could be possible for the Pelicans. But that was all based around, man, Trey Murphy is going to be knocking on an all-star type of year. He may not be an all-star, but he's going to be one of those 22, 23. I said my hot take was that he was going to lead the team in scoring and average 24, 25 again, right? And like be a all-around player. And if he's not going to do that, like this team is not going to be able to generate the type of force and scoring from multiple ways. Like it is just going to be difficult for this team if Trey is not going to be the guy. And again, we're 3 games in. You got a lot of games to play. The good thing about the NBA is that there's 82 games in the regular season. You have 79 more to change the narrative of this starting 3. But these 3 games, even the home opener where he scored, like he had a decent statistical game, but it wasn't, you didn't feel the force. You didn't feel
empty calorie.
Yeah, you didn't feel like he did anything to help the team win when you went back and looked. And so I just think that like he has to get better. It has to start defensively. And I think part of his offensive struggles, again, I always talk about when you boil a player down to his natural build, like what is he? And I think still, as much as he's worked on it, Trey is a shooter and not a scorer. Like he's working on the scoring part, but what he loves to do is shoot. And it would be very akin to like if you was to ask like Klay Thompson to be like a number 1 option. Like that's what it felt like yesterday. Like it was a guy that like couldn't get his shot off. So like there was nothing really else he could do other than like pass. Like he had a decent passing game, but like that's not what you need from Trey Murphy. And so it just was a frustrating thing to watch because you see all of this talent there. And like you watch guys like Larry Markkinen win for 50 last night. Like there's just guys are getting uber buckets across I told you this is like they're not even playing defense yet. The NBA defenses are still in preseason mode. Yeah. So like but like you have to be better defensively. But like you have to be able to carry some of this offensive load when Zion isn't playing.
I think the biggest thing and you're right, you don't want to overreact after a couple of games, but if this game's not an eye opener for Trey Murphy in some degree, I'm not sure what will. He looks like a player who went to the summer, and again, like you won't find anyone that says anything bad about Trey Murphy, the person and the athlete, the human being. He looks like the player who literally all summer long was working on his game, knew the opportunities in front of him to take that next step. Now got to the season, it's like, okay, when do I use what I added? And when do I still shoot? And when do I become more of a playmaker and get others involved? And when do he's thinking about versus just playing basketball and letting the game come to you, because he's not playing with the same force. He's not playing with the same confidence. He's not playing with the same aggressiveness. Like
he really doesn't look like he's playing with the same joy, to be honest.
Right. And my counter to your point about him being a shooter and being like Klay Thompson, I see what you're saying, but my counter to that is I just saw the back half of last season with no healthy bodies. You were like, man, Brandon Boston might be a player. Now he's in Uzbekistan. Like, I just saw what Trey Murphy looked like with no help on the court. He was going to the bat. He was playing free. He was playing like, hey, I'm a 20-point scorer. And this is a regression from that with more talent on the court. And so it's not that I'm asking you to be more or that I'm looking for more. It's I at least want to see what you just saw with less talent on the court. And so I expect a player like Trey to respond and to figure it out, but it has to come quicker. It has to be fast because before you know it, you're going to be looking at that O in the win column and a lot in the loss column, and maybe be looking up in the Western Conference. So let's get to it. A lot of this, especially after last night, is going to fall on the seat of Willie Green. If it was already hot, it's getting spicy. Like you just got a little bit of crystals. You got a little bit of whatever hot sauce, Tabasco, whatever you like to use, mustard, mayonnaise, whatever you like to use. It got a little bit spicier. And this is the quote that my favorite movie of all time. Here's the quote that I'm going to lead on. Attitude reflect leadership, Captain. When you look at this team and over the past couple of years, you've said, when things start to rev up and the physicality starts to turn up a notch, whether because the game's close, because you're out in a big lead, because it's an important game, whatever it may be, the Pelicans have tended to falter and to frail and to break. No matter what iteration of the Pelicans that's been a constant theme so far. And when I look at like players, coaches, I do agree there's a lot of value to that. Again, some of the best coaches of all time were players once again, but they weren't all players coaches. And the ones that were, you have to learn that balance of, hey, I'm a player's coach. I understand what y'all go through. I'm not going to be this dictator like some other people who don't understand. But you also have to know how to hold them accountable. I myself consider myself a player's coach, and I had to learn both as a sports coach and as a manager in a corporate world how to push the right buttons on the right people to make it know that there's still accountability in what that I'm asking of you, whether it's kids, whether it's 20 somethings, whether it's professionals, whatever it would be. And I just wonder if Willie Green hasn't figured that piece out. He's such a nice guy. He's such a calm guy. You saw the emotions after the Phoenix series that I just don't know if that balance of, because like some of the plays that happen, whether it's a rookie or whether it's a vet, other coaches will respond drastically different. And of course, everyone's not a screamer. Everyone's not going to cuss out the referees. I'm not asking people to do that. But there's also like not that level of accountability that you're expecting from a professional basketball coach when you're just not seeing what you're supposed to be seeing. Think of like teams that reflect their coach. When you play the Indiana Pacers, what do you see from Rick Carlisle? Guys are going hard to the wall. It doesn't matter who's on the court. They're playing hard. They're pressuring you full court, whatever it may be. When you play the Thunder, what do you see from Mark Dagenhauer? When you play the Rockets, what do you get with Ime Udoka? When you play any team coached by Tom Thibodeau, what do you know you're going to get? Joe Mazzulla, what you know you're going to get threes. Every team has an identity of no matter what players are on the court, you're going to play like this because this is what your coach did. And like, I don't know what that is for the Pelicans. Like at this point, when teams know, hey, we got down, they got up on the lead, but hey, we about to turn it up. They know they're going to falter on the other side because that's what happens every time. Like, take me through that. Get like, am I missing something here? I understand it's not all his fault and the players have to be accountable to themselves, but I just feel like something's missing.
Raph, I'm going to tell you something that happened yesterday that I don't know if anybody recognized or saw. And again, there were some other things going on with it, so I don't know if it had anything to do with that, but something we both saw on the home opener. The home opener, they announced Willie Green at the end of the starting five, and there was a loud chorus of boos. This against the Celtics, again, they announced that Sadiq Bey was starting at center. We should have known the game was going to go awry then. On Twitter. Wait, they was doing that on Twitter, and then they announced Sadiq Bey coming out, but it was Eves that was really coming out, and then Eves started. However, they did not show Willie Green at all in the lineups, and I believe it's because they know he's going to get booed. He's going to get booed in the Smoothie King Center. We are 3 games into the season. 2 home games. That what you said is right there on the money, and I think it is the most obvious part of it is what you saw from the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla yesterday. You saw a team that knows their coach does not accept anything else than what the standard is. They have lost Jason Tatum for the year. Kristaps Porzingis plays for the Hawks. Drew Holiday plays for the Portland Trailblazers. Al Horford plays for the Golden State Warriors. Jaylen Brown had half of a hamstring. And Derek White is just out there. And they still put up 53s because they know that that is their identity. It don't matter if Tatum is out there. It don't matter if Jaylen Brown is out there. Sam Hauser knows what to do. Josh Minott knows what to do. Everybody on that team knows exactly what to do. And when you watch the Pelicans and you watch this team coached by Willie Green, you don't know what you're going to get on day-to-day basis. Some days and some stretches, you get the number 7 ranked defense in the NBA, where like, okay, obviously they might not score. Damn it, it might be a rock fight, but they're gonna play defense.
Right.
And then some days you get Trey Murphy standing around, Yves Missi standing around, and you look to the sideline. I saw Raph. The Celtics were up by like 15 points in the first quarter. Josh Minott missed a 3 and didn't get back on defense. Joe Mazzulla, they were up like 13 at this point. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout, and if they had a camera on them, there might be some kind of like federal investigation about what he told Josh Minott, because I know there was some 4-letter words, a couple 5-letter words. He grabbed him by the and was laying into it. We're talking about Josh Minott,
right,
on a Celtics team that's playing on a back-to-back in a gap year. And he was on his ass. You look at some of the shots Jordan Poole took. You look at some of the shots Trey Murphy passed up. You look at some of the shots that like Jordan Hawkins was taking. You see some of the standing around. And I just think like if Joe Mazzulla was coaching that, like he might like forfeit the game and just like the rest of the game be them running suicides all day long. Just like that's gonna be what we doing. Y'all can play, y'all have a scrimmage with y'all with the starters in the bench. We gonna just run up and down because obviously my team doesn't want to play. But yet, like there's just so much. There's so much that's and again, it could go back to being a coach, a player's coach. But it just seems like there's a disconnect. And I'm worried, and I think we're there, that like there's only so many times you can say we got pumped, we got pushed around before people are like, bro, we've heard this over and over again. Tom Thibodeau got the Knicks to the conference finals, and the Knicks said, I don't think you did a good enough job. We're gonna let you go get up out of here. You can't keep it falls on deaf ears at some point. And on top of that, you're in a season where this isn't like, again, the uniqueness of the Pelicans. This isn't your typical, hey, this is a season. If it goes trash, you just kind of restart and you try to get you a draft pick. And this ain't that. And so when I'm looking at Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver, and the guys who inherited this coach, this head coach, I'm wondering how long will they allow a season that they kind of curated to be a must compete, must playoff kind of season. How long do you let something like this fester? Because you're in the Western Conference, bro. You start off 1-7, you're probably like, if not done, but like knocking on the door of it.
A lot of work to do.
We saw it last year, right? Where the Pelicans start up and like that was it. Like by November, everybody was like, well, we'll see what's going on in the draft. So like this is not where the Pelicans should be. The first 2 games, like it kind of shows that like Zion was really, really important. And you take him away for 1 game and the team implodes and you hear the same song. We got pumped. We need to take more. care and more pride in how we approach the game. And all of that is fine the first year, the second year, or when Zion and BI are out for the entire year and you're just looking to see what Brandon Boston can do and can Jeremiah Robinson Earl give you some minutes. You have everybody else other than Zion and DeJounte, and you just did not, and you just imploded. And it was jarring to watch this team just kind of give, like, bro, it was 9 points at once, and like before you blink, it was a 30 ball. And I don't know how much more you can just attribute it to, oh, this is going wrong or that is going wrong, when a team that is playing on a back-to-back comes into your house and runs you off the court offensively, defensively, stocks, three-pointer. Boston was a terrible rebounding team, and yet you're not playing like the rebound. It just, and people just standing around like you got this depth. Carlo can't get in the game. Like it just, at some point, it is what it is.
Listen, defense is what Willie Green was brought in to do. And like we've been talking about all summer long, this is his test. We're going to give you a bunch of offensive players. And again, it's been 3 games. I don't expect any roster to figure out defense. We just talked about defense has been terrible. Somebody scored 150 points the other night. Like, I don't expect anyone to figure it out this quickly. But if he doesn't figure it out quicker, I think things could be on the horizon. But it's not just that, right? Like, I understand the guard your yard thing, and you can't just argue or yell at Willie Green for that, because there's a lot of coaches that subscribe to that same theory. But not a lot of coaches are dealing with a roster with everyone between the ages of 19 and 29. So the KYP of it, the know your personnel of it, some of them aren't aware or I don't want to say have the basketball IQ of just the NBA experience of who to close to close not to. So that's got to be pushed in by the coaches. So like all of this points to the same thing. And here's what I'll say. We really enjoyed and we really liked what the Pelicans did with their roster this summer. But a roster's depth is only a weapon if you know when and how to use it. And some of the rotations and some of like the closing lineups and like the closing responsibilities already this season, I get it. You're trying to figure stuff out. It's a brand new team, have been suspect at the very least, have been suspect. To your point, you know what teams have a weakness of, and it never feels like the Pelicans are trying to attack the weak. It's never like, here's what the Pelicans do well, other than Zion. Here's what the Pelicans do well. Let's go point at this. Let's go attack that. Here's what you don't do well. It's always like the Pelicans are responding to whatever someone else is throwing at them. And again, like that is, to me, a reflection of your coach, because you are not standing. This is our identity. This is who we are. And so it will be extremely interesting to have, especially over these next 7 games, especially over this road trip, what happens. Because to your point, I don't think they can't wait till December or January and say this isn't working. I think it's something that's going to come, if it's going to come, sooner rather than later. The last thing I'll say on it is this. Just like with Trey Murray, from all intents and purposes, everything you've heard about Willie Green, the person, the coach, is a great thing. But growing up my entire life about sports and being around different types of coaches, personalities, all different regions of the country, there is a difference and a skill set difference between a assistant coach and a head coach. There are people who are masters at assistant coach, the best in the world, not good head coaches. There are people who are incredible players, i.e. Michael Jordan, but one of the best players of all time, if not the best, not a good coach. It's a different skill set, assistant coach to head coach. And some people are better suited for one than the other. That's all I'll say. That being said, tomorrow's a big game, Garrett. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to win and like it's a do or die situation if they get to 0-4. But like, one, is Zion playing? Because there's no way you get in front of Mike and you get all cheery after your team just got blown out and then make the road trip and then, guys, I'm not going to be able to do this one either. I'm looking at that. 2, Trey Murphy, how are you going to respond? To me, it's not even about the Nuggets. It's not even about what they do well. You understand they have the best player in the world, one of the best players to ever touch a basketball. You understand that they have a championship demeanor. They have a championship home court. They have everything. They're a great team. They're going to be competing for a championship this year. It's not about them. To me, how do the Pelicans respond? I'm only looking at Zion, only looking at Trey, only looking at Willie Green, only look at the roster because, to your point, this thing is very quick to the dominoes just start falling when things get out of hand and there's no coming back from it. In a season where you don't have an escape valve, I just think you need to course correct before it gets too deep. What are you looking for out of the Nuggets game as the Pelicans try to get their first win of the season?
Yeah, this situation, this kind of like this span right here reminds me of a lot of that game that we actually went to in Denver, where the Pelicans got ran off the floor. They didn't look competitive. Zion wasn't, Zion played and everybody played and they got ran off the floor. Then they went to Dallas and they were protesting, because the NBA had to play on a back-to-back in Dallas the next year night, and nobody played. And the Pelicans went out there and looked incredible, and Jordan Hawkins scored 30. Yeah. It reminds me of that. You got slapped around at home. No question about it. Everybody's talking about same old Pelicans. Zion's injured. Zion's hurt. That's the same old story. I 100% agree with you. It's not about the Nuggets. The Nuggets are going to come in. They're going to play through Jokic because they have an identity, and they know what to do. They're going to play through Jokic. They're going to do what they do. They're going to execute at a high level. We know that. There is no game plan for Jokic on the Pelicans. They're just not. There is not one. DeAndre Jordan can't give you no tips. He can't give you no help on the Jokic at all either. It's about the Pelicans. What do you do tomorrow? What is the heart of this team? And can Willie Green salvage anything at all at this point in time? Because it's going to be about them. Because if the Pelicans come out tomorrow and look like the Pelicans of last night, it is going to get really uncomfortable and really awkward because you got the Nuggets and everybody else. The Thunder and all them other teams that are waiting for you to show up at their door. So I don't think there's any high level analysis. There's nothing that. What is the heart check of this team? And if they show up heartless and don't want to compete, Jokic will make sure that they can get their rest real early and real quickly. So that's all I got. So with that being said, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Of course, as always, you never know what people are going through. So give someone a smile today. Follow the page at NO_basketball, no E. And we'll see you guys in the next one.